The passengers on Flight 982 had no idea their lives were about to depend on a janitor. The sky was calm, the engines hummed softly, and somewhere near the front of the aircraft, a man named Ethan Cole was quietly mopping the floor near the cockpit door, thinking about his daughter waiting back home. Ethan was not supposed to be there. He was filling in for a sick coworker, cleaning the plane before takeoff. But when a last-minute seat opened in the back, the captain, a kind woman named Captain Olivia Grant, had offered him a free standby ticket home. Ethan smiled, grateful for her small kindness, not knowing it would soon become the reason she'd live to see another sunrise. Captain Olivia and her co-pilot Megan Price were two of the best in the airline. Calm, focused, professional. As the plane ascended smoothly through the clouds, Megan turned to Olivia with a grin. 30,000 feet. Smooth ride today, she said. Olivia nodded. Let's hope it stays that way. Meanwhile, Ethan sat near the back of the plane, next to a little girl holding a red rose, Sophie, a 7-year-old flying to meet her grandparents. She reminded him painfully of his own daughter, Emma, who he hadn't seen in months. Life had been hard since his wife passed away in a car accident. Ethan worked double shifts as a janitor just to keep a roof over Emma's head. He often wondered if he was doing enough. If Emma would ever understand how much he sacrificed for her. Then, somewhere over the Atlantic, things went terribly wrong. The plane jolted suddenly, shaking violently as alarms blared through the cockpit. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. Olivia's hands shot to the controls. What's happening? Megan shouted. Cabin pressure's dropping. We've lost hydraulic power. Olivia yelled. Seconds later, both pilots began coughing violently. Their oxygen masks had malfunctioned. Within moments, Olivia's vision blurred, and she slumped over the controls. Megan followed seconds later. The cockpit went silent except for the beeping alarms and the screaming wind outside. In the cabin, panic erupted. Flight attendants rushed up and down the aisles, trying to calm the passengers. Sophie began to cry, clutching her rose tightly. Ethan grabbed the mask from above his seat and put it on her first, then his own. He looked around. People were terrified. Someone shouted, "The pilots aren't responding." And that's when something inside Ethan clicked. Most people didn't know Ethan's past. Before he was a janitor, before life had beaten him down, he was something else entirely, a former Air Force pilot. He had been one of the youngest flight instructors in his base. But after his wife's death and a failed medical clearance due to PTSD, he walked away from it all. He promised never to fly again. Until now. Ethan sprinted toward the cockpit, ignoring the chaos behind him. A flight attendant tried to stop him. "Sir, you can't go in there." He looked at her, eyes fierce but calm. "If I don't, everyone on this plane dies." She hesitated for half a second, then nodded, unlocking the cockpit door. Ethan stepped inside. Olivia and Megan were unconscious, the controls flashing red. He eased them out of the way and took the pilot's seat, his heart pounding. It had been years since he touched a control yoke, but muscle memory returned like instinct. "Okay," he whispered to himself. "Let's bring her home." Ethan took manual control of the plane. One of the engines was overheating, and the autopilot system was unresponsive. The radio was crackling with static. "Flight 982, respond," came a distant voice. "You're descending too fast." Ethan grabbed the mic. "This is Ethan Cole, former Air Force. Both pilots are unconscious. I'm taking control." There was a stunned pause on the other end before air traffic control responded. "Copy that, Mr. Cole. You're our only hope up there. Let's do this together." The plane shuddered again, dropping several hundred feet. Passengers screamed. Sophie clutched her seat and whispered, "Please, God." Ethan's hands were steady, but his heart raced. He remembered training missions, emergency procedures, and every word his old instructor used to say. Greater than, a good pilot doesn't panic, he adapts. He rerouted the hydraulics manually, stabilizing the altitude. He guided the plane toward the nearest airport, with air traffic control giving him updates every second. Then came another problem. The landing gear wasn't responding. "Landing gear's not deploying," Ethan said over the radio. "We might have to go belly down." "Copy that," came the voice from the tower. "Emergency crews are ready." He turned and looked back at the unconscious Olivia and Megan. "Hang in there," he whispered. As the city lights appeared below, Ethan thought of Emma. He pictured her smile, the way she'd run into his arms after school, shouting, "Daddy, you're my hero." He hadn't felt like a hero in years. But right now, for these people, for that little girl with the rose, he had to be one. He took a deep breath. "This is for you, Emma." The runway came into view. He angled the plane carefully, descending as slowly as possible. The ground rushed toward them. He braced himself, and the plane screeched across the runway, sparks flying as metal scraped asphalt. Finally, with a deafening roar, the plane came to a halt. Silence followed, then applause, cheers, sobs of relief. Emergency crews rushed aboard. Olivia and Megan were revived shortly after landing. When she opened her eyes and saw Ethan, she gasped, remembering him from before takeoff. You saved us," she whispered. He smiled humbly, just doing what needed to be done. A few minutes later, as he stepped off the plane, Sophie ran up to him, holding her rose. "This is for you," she said softly. "For being our hero." Ethan took the rose, his eyes misting over. "Thank you, sweetheart." Later, as the story made headlines worldwide, Janitor saves 187 lives at 30,000 feet, Ethan didn't care about the fame. What mattered most was the phone call he got that night from his daughter. "Daddy," Emma said through tears, "I saw you on TV. I always knew you could fly." Ethan smiled, holding the rose close. "I just needed a reason to remember who I was. Sometimes, life knocks us down so hard we forget what we're capable of. But real strength isn't about what we've lost, it's about finding courage when the world needs us most." Ethan Cole, the janitor who once gave up on flying, proved that heroes aren't born in uniforms or titles, they rise in moments when ordinary people choose to do something extraordinary. And that day, at 30,000 feet, one single dad reminded the world what true courage looks like.